We've had discussion about announcers and Jacob Owen, or Jake Owen probably. I doubt anyone has ever said Jacob on your way out to the ring. It can't have happened.
That hasn't been a mistake that's been made.
Good. That would be a rather
It's
odd
like
one
the
to make.
only mistake that hasn't been made.
Well, something to shoot for. You still have some career left. Some
Little
tread
bit.
on the tire.
Yeah, sure.
One of my favorite things that you shout that, is always clearly understood. White Power Church.
You say it and people just automatically assume the worst when you say white power church.
Why don't you clear the air, dog? What's the deal with White Power
the
Church?
Life Power Church, it's a misnomer. It's just a bunch of Caucasians who like weightlifting. White power. And we're religious. Church. Nothing bad's ever come from church.
So it's not like a Swoley Bible situation. You're not a bunch of worshipers of Don Mazzetti.
Ooh, I didn't even think about it. I don't know if there was a Don Mazzetti back when the Life Power Church was a thing.
I bet there was a Don Mazzetti. I just don't know if he was at full.
YouTube wasn't in full force in 2007 and 8.
He wasn't hitting that bro science hard enough.
No. But so as you know, Pete, obviously, I was in a group for a very long time on the independent wrestling scene called the Life Power Church, LIFE. But when you scream Life Power in the ring, sometimes it doesn't sound like that.
Oh, it sounds an awful lot like White Power. I'm not going to lie. It took a couple chants for me to figure out, life.
Yeah, life. Yeah, so when I first heard the name Life Power Church, I thought, that's going to be confused for white power. First thing I thought, top of my head, I was like, what are we going to yell in the ring? Life power? That's not going to work. But somehow, this is a thing that happened for years.
Well, if we're going to stereotype people who go to indie wrestling events, yelling something that sounds like white power may not go over like a lead balloon.
It does not exactly make you a bad guy.
Right.
Yeah, in West Virginia or whatever, biggest baby faces in the house. Yeah.
Man, so how do you clear that up though? People just eventually learn it's life.
The most important way that we cleared it up is that I got a pair of tights made that said Life Power Church, so you could see it, and you could see that it was LIFE. I was the only one ever represented the Life Power Church that had that on tights, though.
Well, let me ask you a question, not to get too far into dollars and cents. But ballpark, if you're going to spend a little bit of coin on a pair of tights, we talking $100, $50, $1,000?
We're talking $100. Yeah.
Okay. So there were other disciples who just weren't willing to make that commitment.
Yeah, Tony got a pair of biker shorts made, like spandex shorts, but they just had our logo on one side. They didn't say Life Power Church. They just had like a cross on it with a Hello Kitty in the middle.
That was the symbol?
That was the symbol. Also wasn't my choice.
Wow. When I think Hello Kitty, I do think Tony a little bit, but I also think Gary.
Yeah. So that's how this whole thing started. This whole Life Power Church fiasco started with my friend Gary. And if you don't know who Gary is right off the top of my head, or right off the top of your head, just Google worst tattoos ever. And Gary is always at the top of the list because my friend Gary is the most peculiar human being ever to walk the face of this planet.
But he does love Hello Kitty. And when I figured out the blue line and why it's thin, he supports local law enforcement. That's got to be it.
That makes some sense. But the line straight down the middle of my friend Gary's face might be red.
Oh, I thought it was blue.
It might be red.
Ah.
So my friend Gary, the reason he's on all those bad tattoo things is because he has a Hello Kitty tattoo in the middle of his forehead. He also has a red line down the middle of his head, and his entire left arm is blue. And he's covered in scars caused by soldering irons.
What's the soldering iron thing?
It's called scarification, and it's like a tattoo. It's like a tattoo gun, but it's really just like a soldering iron. And you just burn stuff into you. So like he burned like a spider or whatever into like his hand, and then burned the line from the spider like all the way up to his shoulder. So it forms as in a scar. Apparently it's actually not that painful because it hits so hot and deep, it kills all the nerves real fast. It doesn't look good.
So it's like branding, but worse.
Yeah, pretty much. It's all considered it's together. It's grouped together.
Do you go to a place and have this done, or this is like a friend's basement?
Yeah, you go to like a tattoo shop that can do it, and they do it.
That's weird, man.
It is. I don't understand the appeal, but it was a thing that Gary wanted to do. Gary was just a unique cat. So Gary also was an underground electronic musician that had kind of a cult following. He was under Jacurutu 3. Jacurutu 3 altogether, if you want to look it up.
Is that like Naruto but different? Or whatever that I think that's a Japanese cartoon.
Naruto is a thing.
Naruto.
I've never seen it. I just know it's a thing. Because I used to live in Japan.
No big deal.
Long time. So he was like, he had a good following. I used to see his concerts sometimes. It was really weird though. His concerts were really weird.
What is an EDM concert like? Well, it's not even DM. His electronic music, it doesn't sound like something you dance to.
It's not dancey. This is like, it sounds like distortion or like kind of like nails on a chalkboard.
If you run a club Baby Seals and Murder Kittens, you would turn this on.
Yeah, if you get your microphone or your guitar way too close to your monitor or amplifier and it goes, you know, like my cat apparently.
Apparently someone needs to take a soundbite of that and mix it. Make some EDM with Jake making feedback sounds.
Yeah, so that's the type of music he had. But he had a good following. So Gary got in professional wrestling in early 2006, and we were in the same training class with Shark Boy but Gary didn't pick it up very fast. Gary was not the world's best performer, but he was the world's most over-the-top character. So eventually in 2009, Jimmy Yang and Gary somehow met each other, and they became friends.
You think Jimmy went to one of his shows?
Probably not. Probably not. I don't know how they met or where they met. Don't ask me. They ran some of the same circles. But yeah, it's a weird connection to have.
Like the limousine entertainment circle?
Like Asian redneck works for WWE and then underground Dayton electronic music artist with Hello Kitty tattooed in his forehead. Where do they meet? I don't know. Maybe they have the same parlor. Maybe they have the same Coke dealer. I don't know. That's just a thing I'm throwing out that totally is alleged and not a thing that they could both do. I don't know.
Jake is winking so hard right now.
No, I'm not winking. Allegedly, you're saying I'm winking. I'm not, but allegedly, my friends do drugs, and some of them do, some of them don't. Could be a joke. But they met somehow, Gary and Jimmy Yang, and Jimmy Yang was getting ready to run a wrestling school and wrestling shows, and he thought, man, I got to have Gary on these shows. Unfortunately, Gary's awful. So what do you do, Pete?
Let's see. If you're awful, but somebody wants to book you, and you don't have breasts, right? Gary doesn't have breasts?
No breasts.
So what, you got to manage then, don't you?
Obviously. So natural fit. Gary's got to be a manager. So Jimmy told Gary, hey, man, find yourself a tag team and come up with a tag name. And it's like a cult. You're the cult leader. So Gary called Tony and I, Tony X and myself. And that's when the Life Power Church was born.
Who first threw that out there?
Gary. Definitely Gary. He's the one that threw out weird stuff. Always. He even wrote a book once, and I got a copy of the book, and man, it was out there. And there wasn't much punctuation either.
What was it about?
It was kind of like a story of his life, but then it was also just all these different tangents of his mind, which is, spoiler alert, scary.
Well, in your comment about punctuation, just as a public service announcement, a comma and a period are not the same thing. They should not be used interchangeably. I'm just going to say that.
My Lord, do you know people who use commas with periods should be?
Oh, yeah. I know someone who routinely will write roughly 5 or 6 sentences without a single period.
Like
it's all just commas.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's awful. That's terrible. Yeah. Oh, I've been going through resumes lately and came across some people who don't know how to use punctuation either. Dude, why would I hire you?
Well, and anymore, Microsoft Word suggests punctuation.
Dude, all computer programs pretty much tell you if there's something that's wrong. If there's an error, you can fix that stuff.
In fact, most of the time you have to click cancel to not fix it.
Yeah, it's like it's harder to be wrong nowadays, yet people just are forcing themselves to be wrong.
You know what? If all of those people got a Hello Kitty tattoo on their forehead, at least you'd be able to identify them easier. You know who those people are.
Yeah. So let's just say, let's think of that for the future. Yeah, let's tattoo all our idiot kids with Hello Kitties on their forehead. So anyway, Gary came up with this Life Power Church thing. We started doing it at this show in Cincinnati every other week, and the crowd loved it. And I'll be honest, Gary had a great look, but I look like a schmuck, and Tony looked like a schmuck. Like, we didn't look intimidating at all. We were just dudes.
You were born again Life Powers is.
Yeah, it looked like we would be in a cult because maybe like we don't have our own friends. Actually, AEW is doing something kind of similar right now called the Dark Order.
Did you celebrate by drinking Kool-Aid?
Ooh, we never did that on.
Man.
Nah, never did that on the show.
Wouldn't that be great? You win, you get your hands raised, you drink some Kool-Aid, then you both just collapse on the ground and the ref doesn't know what to do.
That'd be kind of funny. Yeah. We should have handed out Kool-Aid to fans. I think I pitched that at some point, actually. Like, give all the fans, like, a little shot cup.
Then tell me Gary was like, well, man, too far. Too far.
No. He probably would have been like, how about I put my actual blood in every cup? Because that's how Gary went. I've seen Gary do some weird stuff.
Like bleed into people's beverages?
I haven't seen that. I saw Gary get suspended one time.
Like from school?
Ooh, different. Slightly different. So suspension is this thing where people put these huge fish hooks in your back, connect it to a chain, and then they hoist you up into the air and you hang from these hooks and your skin stretches like a good 6 inches as your body just hangs there and it looks like you're dead.
This just sounds like second-degree autoerotic asphyxiation.
I mean, it's definitely a fetish-based community, which Gary was probably in a lot of.
So what's the deal? I mean, forgive the expression, but how do you get off? Like, you're all like, oh, hey, this is so cool. Like, is it exciting? Is it thrilling? Is it painful?
I honestly don't know, but I wanted to do it because I thought it looked so cool because it was just so unique. So I kind of wanted to do it. I just never did.
So what? You can put it on a resume?
Kind of. So Instagram.
Ooh, that would probably sell on the gram. Have you looked for it?
Yeah, no, I haven't actually because this was way before Instagram existed. This was like 2008.
That could be your whole deal. Oh, that's Jake. What does he do? He suspends himself.
Yeah. So like I suspended myself from wrestling to suspend myself from the ceiling. So like I'm going to quit wrestling right anyway, Pete. So I need new cool things to do. So I might as well just hang from hooks for likes. Man, this goes back to Jake and I had a little bit of discussion because I wasn't real sure on what suspension was prior to this conversation. I was like, what if you just have hooks permanently in your back? So in case the need to suspend at home arises, you just, use, the same way you attach different bars to weight equipment at the gym. Like carabiner, yeah.
Just have a carabiner on the end. So maybe when you jump from the top rope, have the carabiners lock in and you just get hung up. Oh,
dude, what if I had just those hooks in my back and then I went to the gym and I was lifting and like I took off my hoodie or whatever and I just hooked myself to the lat pull down bar and just hung there.
No. Yeah, make sure there's enough weight to keep you off the ground.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. That's important.
Have somebody hand you weights. Just do curls while you're suspended from the bar.
And if somebody's like, oh my God, we're doing stretching. Leave me alone.
No. Yeah. Man, you just have a Bluetooth speaker with Gary's electronic music.
Or I could get a pair of headphones and just blare it to the point where everyone else has to hear it too.
I don't know if your ears would start bleeding, but either way, you should find a way to make your, maybe a capsule or something so it looks like your ears are bleeding.
Yeah. And just hang there from the lat pull down bar.
Life Power.
It'd be cool if somebody, like a gym bro, came up to me, straight face, and was just like, you almost done with that?
Yeah. Hey, man. Can I get a set in here or what? Yeah. Super set.
I'm like, yeah, just sit down and grab my arms.
Do you know what would happen then? At some point in time, your crotch would be in his face as he's fully relaxing his arms.
Happens in my business often.
God, that's grotesque.
Yeah. So I've seen Gary do some weird stuff. Also, even though Gary did all this weird stuff and he was a peculiar looking human being, he always had the most ridiculously hot girlfriends. Yeah, like I remember when we were doing these shows, at one point this like preppy blonde cheerleader girl who was like 10 years younger than him was at the show because she was like 25, he was like 35, and just like showed up and like we're talking supermodel level and like her and Gary, man. And then another point, I met like several ridiculously good looking goth girls all covered in like tattoos, like Kat Von D looking females, and then they'd be gone and there'd be another supermodel cheerleader.
Was it like the Marilyn Manson effect? Even though on stage he looks all ambiguous and a little bit gross, then he walks off stage and chicks are like, woo.
That's the perfect example. He had that Marilyn Manson charisma.
Is charisma the word? I guess it has to be.
It's got to work, right? Because I don't know how you describe it. That aura. Anyway, like Gary is one of the most interesting human beings ever. Also, Gary would just do this thing sometimes where he would like just disappear for like a few months or like a year and then come back and just be Gary again.
Is he like a mercenary?
I'd love to know. What if Gary was an undercover cop?
That is way undercover. Yeah, what if he's a totally normal dude? Like if you met real Gary, you'd think he's like an accountant or something. But undercover Gary has a friggin' Hello Kitty tattoo on his head.
No, that's the thing you just always have to have. There's no going back. He had the same job working at Walmart for like over a decade.
Oh, no.
And they were just cool with him. Like he always wore a hat. Cover up the Hello Kitty tattoo.
Yeah, which is worse? We've got a no hat policy at, oh God, put that back on.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. You know, one time I was at a job and I did dye my hair pink. And I didn't want to like get in trouble for it, so I just wore a hat for the next few weeks, and then it ended up all fading out. And then it wasn't until like it was pretty much gone where I told someone like, "Oh yeah, I have bright pink hair." And then my boss was like, "Oh, why didn't you show that off?" Because I was working at a company where we worked with mentally handicapped adults, and they're like, "Oh, everyone would love that." Like they call them consumers. Like all the consumers would love that.
They call them like, consumers.
Mm-hmm.
You make products for consumers. Employees are not consumers.
Hey, I don't know. I didn't like the job very much. I was there for a month. That's a story for another day when we talk about worst jobs I've ever had. I need to tell you about this job.
Just long enough for the hair dye to run out so you get a new gig.
And I'll clarify, I loved working with the mentally handicapped adults. They were great. The other stuff I was asked to do, I was not great. Story for another day. So Gary, super interesting individual. So we started doing the Life Power Church thing down in Cincinnati, and it kind of took off, and we started trying to do it a few other places. A few other big wrestling companies, bigger comparatively.
Like AEW?
No.
WCW?
No.
TNT, though?
Yeah.
On the TNT network?
No. But like TNT Wrestling in Seymour, Indiana, that runs on the third Saturday every month, they loved it. They loved the idea. Yeah, so I'm surprised you even knew about TNT Wrestling.
Dude, I'm next level fan.
So I think there is a TNT in Tennessee. Tried and True is the name of it, maybe. I've never been there. I don't know. It's small. Whatever.
But book him, though. Book him.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to give me money, I'll come. Like, hey, that's pretty much like, I should put that on a shirt. You give me money, I'll come.
That shirt would probably sell for more than one reason.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's a great professional wrestling booking shirt. That could be the name of the episode even. Probably not. It's not a good idea. So, and then there's a company called VIP Wrestling up in Michigan. So I got booked for that, and I brought the Life Power Church there, and they put me with these other two dudes who they thought would fit. These two dudes they called the Painkillers. And now we're talking 10 years later, and two of those dudes are still like really good friends of mine. Jake Something is like one of my best friends. He works for Impact Wrestling. He's like one of the best workers in the world. So like that came just because they thought, yeah, you should be a cult leader and have these members. And I was finally the leader. And then for the next few years of the White Power Church, I was totally the leader everywhere I went. And people always thought I was like racist at first, and they realized I wasn't racist, just crazy.
Well, a little racist.
Yeah, I mean, we're all a little racist. Yeah. So, the Life Power Church was a pretty big part of my wrestling career for a while. I still get fans that talk about it, and I want to be like, oh man, I wasn't good then. Stop that.
Did you put that on your AU application?
That was in the Life Power Church? Yes. I should have. I'm pretty sure at some point someone's asked me what church I went to, and I've said it. Yeah, I go to Life Power Church.
I'm a regular attendee of the Life Power Church.
Yeah. There was another, I have crossed like different churches that were like the Life something church or like the Life Church.
I bend the knee at the Life Power Church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go to the Life Power Church. And yeah, I mean, I went to a school that was Church of God, and it's pretty much the same thing.
That's swell. I'm glad it's not the White Power Church, though. That would have been not good.
No, actually, I really didn't want people to think that. There were times, though, where I would yell that in the crowd, and then I would look at the crowd, and I could tell the people who thought I said something racist. And there were times, and a lot of the times they would come up to me after the match or the show and be like, "Oh yeah, man, at first I thought you were yelling this," and I kind of was like, huh, "Man, you're stupid." But
how could you even think?
Yeah,
that?
In my mind, I'm like, duh, you thought I was yelling that. It sounds just like that. I didn't come up with the name of this stupid cult.
This cult that I've devoted my life to.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, which is kind of a bummer. Like Jim Jones, he got to name his cult, right?
Yes,
like,
he did.
Has anyone ever joined a cult and the cult had such a dumb name and then someone else takes it over, like they're the new president and they're like, oh man, I love this organization. It's great, but man, the name is dumb.
I don't think you get past hurdle one, which is joining. Part of a cult is, I mean, certainly you've got a charismatic leader and they either brainwash you or it sounds plausible enough you buy in.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you get much past stage one of, oh, hey, man, you want to come over to my place? I'm hanging out with some of the white power guys. No.
Yeah, we'll see. That's what if you got elected president of the United States and you're like, hey, man, I love this job. I love this country. I'm just saying, maybe we should rename it.
Rename the U.S.?
Yeah, maybe we should rename it. See, I don't think that's crazy. You think that somebody in power at some point would want to do that.
Yeah, we're not moving enough merch, not selling enough flags.
Holy hell. Yeah, you know how wrestlers like every few months should get a new shirt, or sometimes the Carolina Panthers will rebrand because it sells more merch? Why doesn't the U.S. do that? Why don't we get a new flag every 20 or 30 years just to sell the shit out of them?
Something like a Hello Kitty and a cross right in the center of it.
Let's do it. Yeah. Oh, also, I thought that was a bad idea because it's like, that's copyright infringement, right? So why would we do that and put a Hello Kitty on our ties? Tony actually got which I think looks cool still, is a cross with the Hello Kitty in the middle of it on his forearm, tattooed.
So you only got tights, and then Tony one-upped you.
He did. Yeah, I just put the name on the side too. I had my other logo on the leg.
When are you going to get the tattoo?
Yeah, I almost got the tattoo like a few different times. I've talked to him about it a lot. And yeah, because Tony's tattoo still looks good. It looks cool.
So if Gary's like number 3 on worst tattoos of the world, Tony's had a doozy or two in his life. I mean, not like world ranked, internationally ranked bad.
Oh, let's keep the focus on Gary's tattoos.
Oh, which one did Tony get replaced? Was the one on his arm?
He has a Buddha on his arm.
Oh, I thought there was something else.
Oh, at first it didn't look bad, and then he got it redone years later, and it looks really good.
I got you.
Yeah, I think it started as a Buddha, ended up as a Buddha. It might start as something else.
Well,
Tony, you listen, tell us.
The one I thought was kind of comical at the time, but it's like, that's got to be regret, is the name that he's got on his posterior.
Oh, man, you can't regret that. Yeah, our friend Tony has a Max in the shape of a heart on his butt. And that's still funny to me to this day. And I don't know, Tony, let us know if you regret it. I'm willing to bet you don't. You shouldn't.
I guess that's what I mean. It's not to insult Tony's tattoos, but it's like a man getting another man's name tattooed on his butt. At some point in time, you have to be thinking, man, maybe that wasn't the greatest idea.
I don't know, because I don't have a name on my butt. I know Max was supposed to pay for it, though. Like, I know Max said, if you get my name tattooed on your butt in the shape of a heart, I'll pay for it. And I don't think Max ever paid for it.
Max stiffed him?
I'm pretty sure.
Look, that's some bull.
Yeah, he owes him. He should at least look him up with that now, plus inflation.
Absolutely.
Because that was like 10 years ago.
Either that or Gary will come for you in your sleep.
Yeah, give him money and he'll come.
You should Google this guy. If you don't know who he is, you got to Google him.
Yep, Jackaroo23 or Scary Gary, but with 2 R's in Scary and 2 R's in Gary.
There should not be 2 R's in either of those.
Well, Gary, at least that's a name, and you could, in theory, make it whatever you want. But Scary Gary, that's not good. So if you want to Google a few different versions of that to hopefully find the real Scary Gary, that's cool.
Tell me there's an E in Scary too, or something?
No, there's not. Yeah, I would point you in his direction, like Facebook or anything like that, but I'm like not his friend on there anymore. We're not homies anymore.
You got kicked out of the church?
Apparently. Gary went to New York for like a year or something, came back, and it was like he just didn't want to associate with anyone anymore. He deleted people.
He no longer supports white power.
We were close homies too. It was sad.
Should pour some out for him. Juice from a convenience store in a Hello Kitty bottle. Just pour some out for him.
I'll go down to One World Market, the Japanese market soon, and just pour out a little of one of those sugary drinks for him.
Scary Gary.
Scary Gary. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I think that sums up the Life Power Church and my friend Gary, which, super interesting part of my life.
Yeah,
love Gary, even though we might not be homies anymore. I don't know.
That's the thing everybody knows now.
Yep.
The origin story of the LPC.
Yeah, I'm not racist. That's usually only said by racist people. Right. But in this one context where I have to explain the miscommunication and the misunderstanding that comes from Life Power Church, So anytime I would yell it, I would stress the L and the F as much as I could. Life power. And it's not like you yell Life Power Church. It still doesn't sound.
That's a real steep hill to climb. That's rough.
Yeah, I don't want to die on that hill.
We're going to allow you the opportunity to recant. Done.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to change the name of this thing. Like, there's a reason why sometimes I refer to it as the LPC. It's an acronym. Nothing racist about an acronym.
Never.
Yeah. Like NRA.
Yeah, that's the example you're going. Good example.
Not racist, right? I don't know. Cool. So we're at Life Power Church.
Has that handle been taken?
I don't know. It was so back in the day we never had to register stuff like that. I never made any group pages for it. It should be taken now. One of our listeners will take it. Try and sell it back to us later for profit.
It's smart. It's a good move.
It is. If you can register that thing for free, why not have it? So we're at Off the Cliff Pod. Pete is at Multimedia Hustle. I'm at Jake Oman 2012. Follow me on there. And if you get the chance to see me wrestle soon, I'd recommend you take it because you never know. # Into the Road.